2020 election is a real bummer. For people who care about peace and justice, they're cornered into the politics of lesser evilism. And for most working class people, the invisible majority who simply don't vote because their needs are ignored, the election is just background noise. It's true that there are legitimate differences between the two when it comes to domestic policy. Biden's agenda on key issues is pretty much center-right.
Veto Medicare for all. Fracking.
Nothing will change for Wall Street.
More funding for police.
With just enough woke language and token social policies to demand support from the left.
Men marrying men, women marrying women, all are entitled to the same exact rights. Life begins at conception. That's the church's judgment. I just refuse to impose that on others.
Black lives have been devalued by our society.
While Trump, on the other hand, campaigns on a solidly far-right agenda.
Do a police state. No environmental regulation. Attack trans people. Tax cuts. Voter suppression. Ignore the pandemic.
While using language that openly courts racist extremists and dangerous cults like QAnon.
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, but I'll tell you what, somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
Knock the crap out of them, would you?
QAnon movement appears to be gaining a lot of followers.
If I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it.
Depressing times. But the fact is, there are many more people outside the United States who are impacted by the decisions of the American president than those who live within its borders. The unspoken reality in American politics is that the United States is a vast territorial empire. It rules other nations as territories, subjugates others as neo-colonies, overthrows independent governments, houses 800 major military bases in over 70 countries, and is engaged in ground combat, bombing, and drone strikes across most continents. So for people who care about foreign policy, who really is better, Biden or Trump? Many claim Trump is actually the anti-war candidate, someone who bucks the Pentagon establishment.
Great nations do not fight endless wars.
But Biden sent our youth to fight in these crazy endless wars. We will stop racing to topple foreign regimes that we know nothing about.
That's pretty incorrect.
Others say Biden is less dangerous, reasonable on foreign affairs versus Trump's chaotic belligerence.
Please go out and vote this coming November for someone that they know will actually defend them, or military family, the Bidens.
Of course, foreign policy is seen as one of Joe Biden's biggest strengths.
His erratic policies and failures to uphold basic democratic principles have muddled our reputation, and I quite frankly believe our ability to lead the world.
Both sides are justified by focusing on this or that isolated fact. That Trump is worse because he's more brazen in his support for the Israeli extreme right, or that he's increased bombing overseas to record levels. That Biden is worse because he promises to confront Assad, or push a more hawkish policy towards Russia. Trump says he's better because he wants détente with North Korea, and will end the war in Afghanistan. Biden says he is better because he wants détente with Iran, and will end the war in Yemen. Neither give us any reason to believe them. Biden's already proven his pro-war cred, as he not only championed the invasion of Iraq, but actually wanted to split it up into 3 separate countries. And who can forget presiding over the birth of America's killer drone empire?
Both former GOP national security officials have officially endorsed Democratic nominee Joe Biden for president. The group is named the former Republican national security officials for Biden.
So-called anti-establishment Trump bragged he let the Pentagon take the gloves off, giving them unprecedented authority. Trump doubled civilian casualties, increased troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, orchestrated coups in Bolivia and Venezuela, and brought us to the doorstep of world war by attacking Iran. Taken in their totality, Trump and Biden debating foreign policy is not much different than Nazi officers debating the military strategies of Hitler. The hard truth is that Trump and Biden are both committed to a global military empire and endless war that kills and subjugates millions of people, to using CIA plots, occupation, and brute force to impose and expand US capitalism around the world. All independent nations are on their list for overthrow or destruction. Trump and Biden just have different timelines, with different targets and tactics. The debate over who is better on foreign policy becomes reduced to speculating who is more likely to start World War III, or dissecting who will provide minor improvement in this or that country, knowing there's a trade-off for more hawkish policy against others. How can such a thing be quantified? Which lives are worth more? And which country should we compromise killing people in order to stop them being killed in another? These are deeply disturbing questions. And what's never acknowledged is that on foreign policy, Trump and Biden actually agree on far more than they disagree on.
A coup in Venezuela. CIA black sites. Drones striking civilians in Africa and the Middle East. Genociding Palestine. Occupying the global south. Military provocations near China. Extinction-level nuclear proliferation.
The near-unanimous congressional support for Trump's military budget, just like the bipartisan support for every criminal war, coup, intervention, and bombing campaign in this country's history, shows no matter which party triumphs in the election, the war machine always wins, and the war machine will win again in 2020. Anyone who cares about ending this murderous legacy and the dark reality of the US as a global occupation force needs to understand that peace is not on the ballot. The only path out of this is building a grassroots anti-war struggle that fights both parties, using the only language they understand, disrupting and shutting down business as usual for the war profiteers and the politicians who support this imperial world order. This entire system, from the political establishment to the Pentagon leadership, runs on the ideology of American supremacy. The US doesn't have imperialist policies. The US is an imperialist country. We must build a movement that challenges this premise and comes in direct confrontation with it.